Well, welcome, everybody. I guess I'll start it off first. We announced, is Mike having troubles again? Yeah, okay, so that's good. We announced 3-4 hours ago, made it official. Glen Gulutzan being hired. We'll have the press conference tomorrow. We also announced Neil Graham being hired as an assistant. So I think we got the best of both worlds there, along with Elaine Nazardine. So the coaching staff's come together very well. I start off with trying to backtrack here what we got done today in that. We announced Radek Faksa. We brought Radek back. Went through our meetings. And Radek, we missed Radek this year. He's been a big part of our team for a long time. And he's a big, heavy body. He's very good defensively, a great penalty killer, very good on draws, and he's got a physical element to his game. And something that we thought we really missed a little bit in the playoffs, and he brings that. And we watched him closely when St. Louis played, and he was a force for him. So we brought him back. Also, it'll be announced here just shortly. Blackwell, we've signed him. That was out on Twitter a little bit anyways, but I'll make that official. I'm trying to, any other questions? I'm trying to think who else. It's been a whirlwind here. You get names flying through.
You're over the cap. Any trades made to alleviate that?
No trades. We'll work on that. There's still some hockey things we're looking at. So we'll get that. We've got till October to get that figured out. We lost some great players today. I just talked to Dadnoff's agent. He's going a different direction. We're going to miss him. He's a good player for us. And then everybody saw, I believe, Granlund's contract today. He signed to wish him all the best also.
What's the thought process on getting to Glen Gulutzan? How many guys did you have to go through, and why did you like him as the top?
Yeah, we went through a long list, and we went, old, young, all different variations. But in the end, Glenn, we'll probably talk about this more. I'm probably going to do this twice now, Mike. You asked this question. We went through the process. And part of my job as a manager and our staff is we're always evaluating other teams and what they're doing in that. And Glenn's name has come up every time we've talked. I was at the Four Nations, and I was around some of the best players in the world, and his name kind of come up. So he's a young man that's paid his dues and worked his way up. He's done it the right way. He's probably the first one to admit that it was probably too soon here. But when you get offered a job, you want, you've always dreamed of doing, you're not going to say no to it. But in the end, he knew it was probably too quick for him. But he was willing to go backwards and make himself who he is today. And we think that's the right coach for the Dallas Stars.
Did it make for a fun conversation with him, considering?
Yeah. Well, I said, kind of a crazy business. I'm the guy that, when I got hired, I brought him in. Didn't really know much of him. Like, he was a young lad that just came. It was Las Vegas to Texas real quick and up, and just thought I had to head in a different direction. So we had good conversation about that. And even when I still remember when I met him and stuff. We had great conversation. He knew it probably wasn't the right time.
You've been through basically the same growth pattern. What have you learned, and how do you think he's used that 12, 13 years?
Well, you learn all the time. When you first get a job, you think you're all prepared. And that's what I always tell people is there's so many things you don't understand. And even when I interviewed some of the younger coaches, everybody's eager, ready to go. But until you get in those shoes and have to make those tough decisions, and there's things you don't understand. You might not understand the schedule of the NHL. You might not understand, you deal with a player, in junior, in Europe, or in the American Hockey League. Now you're dealing with a superstar, and those are different conversations.
When you look at kind of what you did today as a whole, bring back a lot of similar guys, not adding anybody new yet at least, and the big change is a new coach. Do you look at last season and kind of diagnose maybe what didn't go right? Is the coach the big change you felt like you needed to make? Do you feel like this is a roster that can win the Stanley Cup with it?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, everybody talks about big change. Pretty good team last year. You got to be careful. I think I talked about in the previous press conferences. You got to be careful. This isn't a blow it up situation. And the other thing I talked about is we made a lot of the moves the teams are making today probably back in February. I get back to if you would have told us back in October, November, or go even farther back to free agency, and a year ago at this time, that you'd have a chance to get Mikko Rantanen. You know, if Mikko Rantanen was available today in free agency, everybody's after him in that. And we're fortunate we did that in February. You know, the other moves we made was for Granlund. Would have loved to bring him back, but I think you guys saw what he made. Good for him. I'm happy for him, and he deserves it. But that was something that wasn't going to fit into our system. It's just fact of the numbers don't add up. Same with Cody Ceci. Cody called me. He wanted to come back bad. He loved it here. All the guys loved it here. But we have there is a cap in place in our business. It's a business. We have a lot of younger players. We're fortunate. We got a good group a core group of good young players, but they have to be paid also, and the numbers just don't add up. So, so to answer your question, a lot of our work was done back in February, and I kind of knew that, and now we're just trying to add around the pieces around that and adjust it, and we're looking for some internal growth also. I think some of our players are going to continue to get better. You know, a lot of these guys are 22, 23, 24, 25 years of age. They're still hitting their prime. So there's a lot of good things here.
Not to take away from any of the guys that you added today, but considering some of the talent that you lost, is it hard to reconcile a little bit knowing how good of a team that was a year ago and that it still wasn't able to?
Yeah. Well, that's the tough part. That was a good team. You know, and part of that is, you know, I don't have a lot of time to, explain it, but the LTI, we were able to max out our LTI situation. You start the year, you got your team set, and it was a good team. And all of a sudden, Tyler Seguin gets hurt. Hiskin gets hurt. Lundqvist gets hurt. We used that under the rules to max out the team we could. We added probably $20-some million to our payroll at the time to make, because we're allowed to make that work. And if we didn't have those injuries, we would never added those players. So it really added to our roster, and that's disappointing. Now we were one of the final four teams, so it's still a heck of a run. But that's the way it goes sometimes. And part of that is we had major injuries on top of it. The reason we made those moves is because we had major injuries. You had our best defenseman out and one of our best forwards. It's tough. Then Tyler Seguin out for most of the time. So it was tough, but that's part of the business, and we get through it. But that was a good team, real good team. But we're going to grow from that. We're starting over fresh now, and we did lose a lot of good players, but the guys coming in and the steps the younger guys take, that's what we're going to need internally.
Jim, you mentioned that Neil Graham was going to be part of that search, and obviously you announced he's going to be part of the staff today. And then I think you mentioned Elaine Nazardine also was one of the candidates you talked to. That's two guys that you talked to that are now going to be returning as part of the assistant or part of the coaching staff. What was the process like to bring them on or keep them on?
To keep him on, Elaine was already under contract, but he deserved the respect, and he was one of the final candidates. He's done a good job. These guys are all kind of similar paths, but just at different time frames. Elaine's started out in New Jersey as a coach. Because of a change of guard there, he was an interim head coach for a while, and then went back to being assistant, and so he's on the right path. And then Neil is Glen Gulutzan and Elaine Nazardine 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. He's done a great job in the minors for us. Idaho, Texas, did just done an unbelievable job, and he's an up-and-coming coach, and he's not far off. And so we're very fortunate to be able to add him to this group, and along with Elaine, and I think it's a real good group, and great minds, and I think they're going to bring great energy to the dressing room.
Do you still see there being one more coaching spot for maybe Misha that is goals to be part of the choice?
Yeah, I've talked. We're going to have some more meetings. I want Glenn to sit down. I want to see his plan to bring the staff together, and is there somebody that fits in? That's what we're working on.
How much does Neil's familiarity help you guys? Because he knows pretty much all of these players.
Yeah, no, it's big. I believe there's 7 or 8 players. I believe that he's coached personally himself, and then probably another 5 that were coming up through his system as he came up through his system. So that helps a lot. And they've had success with him. And so there's a real respect factor there, and a buy-in, which is important.
Jim,
I'm jumping the gun on this one a little bit, but did you talk with Glenn about his style and what he might coach next year, and can you give us a hint? Will it be a lot different? Will it be a little bit different?
Yeah, I've talked to him. I think I'll leave that for Glenn tomorrow. I think that's probably best for him to say that. A lot of good has happened here. He understands that, but there's just some tinkering, And the other thing that's intriguing about this, he's played us against us in the last 2 conference finals, so he knows us like a book. He knows our strength. He knows our weaknesses, and he looks forward to making those adjustments.
Jim, you mentioned that 4 of the top 5 free agents on y'all's list were already off the board over the weekend, and then all of Florida's guys go back to Florida. Marner gets moved. Did it feel like a quieter July 1st than normal? And if so, do you have a reason maybe of why it was like that?
We knew going in it wasn't not a lot of depth in this free agent group. For a high end in that, a lot of that. The cap has increased a lot, so teams are able to sign their own guys. That's probably the major part of it. And some years you're going to have some guys available, some not. But I think the biggest part is the cap. We saw the increase in it this year. Teams were able to fit guys in, so it really changed the period, free agent period.
Do you think just a change of voice in the room could be a difference maker for this team just getting over the hump?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to be a big part of it. And it's not really a change of voice. There's going to be some philosophical changes. There's going to be some adjustments. I'll let Neil talk about that more. It's going to be some adjustments to the systems, and I think that's important.
How does this style of coaching compare to Pete's?
Coaches in the NHL they're all very good, and they're all similar, but they all got their different ways of sending messages, and there's always going to be a little bit of tinkering in systems and that. So will it be different? Yes, but I get back to a lot of good happened here also, and we got to be considerate of that.
You mentioned Granlund, CC, all wanting to come back to this locker room, to this organization. Do you take pride in knowing that there are a lot of players, former or pending, that respect you in that way and really want to be part of what you're building here?
Yeah, I don't know if it's not all me. It's the organization. It's the people organization. We've built a good culture here. I believe we do things right. We're winning. It's a great city. It's a great fan base. So it's really a combination of all those things. It's the organization, from the ownership, from Tom Glardy and his family on down, have done a great job here. Brad Alberts is the president. The business side does a good job, and a big part is winning. It's when you're successful, do things right, treat people right. I think that's important, and that's the message I get from all the players. I've talked to the guys that left. I've just talked to Cody Ceci, and he wanted to stay. He loved it here, but business decisions, and he's got to look after his family too. He's got to do the right thing. But it's a good organization. We're doing things right, and we're going to continue to do that the best we can.
I noticed you didn't say anything about the no state income tax, which has been a huge talking point over the past summer, and with Florida winning their back-to-back Stanley Cups. Does that ever come up in the discussions when you're talking to free agents?
No. Is there some advantages? Yes, but every city has certain advantages. In the end, it's, are you successful? That's going to open the door first. When you're talking to players, and usually the money's the same, as far as what you're offering players, you get players that want to win. They want to win, and that's the important thing. Is I don't want to get onto the no tax thing too much, but the Floridas and that, nobody wanted to go there for 10, 12 years. Dallas 15 years ago was in bankruptcy and everything else. Nobody was coming here. So it's really, do the right things, be competitive, have a good team, that usually means a good fan base, and that's, we're fortunate. Great weather, great city. Those are kind of the cherries on top, but really the core is, what's the foundation of the hockey operations and the mindset.
Jim, one thing you look at Glenn on the playoffs, his next playoff win as a head coach will be his first one, obviously.
Yep.
But when you look at what he's been through with Edmonton, does that kind of give you confidence that he kind of knows how to handle those situations?
No, he's been hardened. You'll be able to talk to him tomorrow. You know how down we were when we just finished losing to Edmonton. Well, after I interviewed him about 4 or 5 days after that loss, he was devastated. You get that far, to go through the grind of the playoffs, get that far, your goal is to win, and you lose, it's heartbreak. It's heartbreak. He was devastated. But you got to go through those situations. You got to get hardened. understand what it takes. And it's coaches, it's players, it's managers, you all got to go through that. And he's been through that 2 years in a row.
We'll take a few more for Jim here, and he'll have one to say tomorrow.
Thanks, Joe. Did you all have conversations with Matej Blumel at all today about potentially coming back? I think I saw he's going to Boston.
Yeah, he signed with Boston. We've talked to him 2 or 3 times over the last 3-4 days. And he was excited about coming here, but this is his one chance to be free. And I just think he thought it's a fresh start and a little bit of opportunity. You know, he's going to a team that didn't make the playoffs, and so he's looking at this opportunity for him. And so I can't blame him. Matej's been great for us, done a great job for us. You know, and this is his chance to pick and choose where he wants to go.
Are you done with free agency now, and does this open the door for some of the minor league players?
We're still looking at some things. We're open, but we got flexibility. It's that you get to that point in the free agency now where it's the run or the rush has happened. Now let's sit. Is there somebody that we didn't think was gonna get more money and is higher on our list, and we're like, boy, we can't say no to this. But we'll monitor that over the next 3-4 days.
How do you guys look at the minor leaguers right now? Because they're coming off a nice run.
Real good run, you know, and that's a compliment to Neil Graham, who we've brought up here, of course, and that's why he's coming up. They've done it. They had a great run. We got 4 or 5 guys down there that they're itching to get their chance, which is good.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, thanks everyone.